You didn't arrive here by accident. You were tuned here by resonance, drawn across an invisible lattice of meaning that threads your breath to the breath of the cosmos. You feel it already, a subtle pressure behind the sternum, a widening of space between thoughts, the hush that descends when a door you could not name opens without a sound. In that quiet, a message crosses the threshold. It does not persuade, it recognizes, it remembers you to yourself. You have lived long enough to see the observer loop play its secret game, how attention shapes the room you walk into, how the room reflects you back like a polished, ancient mirror. The quantum field listens with immaculate coherence. It is not sentimental, it is exact. It mirrors what you allow to exist, no more, no less, measuring your signal the way a tuning fork finds its twin across the hall. What you call chance is often morphic resonance ripening in plain sight. Beneath the surface of your days, filaments of light have been reweaving. The old stories that clung to your aura like fog have thinned. Your cells, diligent and bright, have rehearsed a quieter music, preparing for a phase transition the way ice considers becoming water. This is the moment the shy frequency finally steps forward. It does not ask for spectacle, it asks for permission, not the loud permission of the mind, but the soft permission of the heart that knows when its time has come. Listen with your whole body now. The field is near enough to taste cool, luminous, precise. It shows you a threshold the way dawn shows you, the outline of a mountain you have slept beside for years. There is a final layer you have carried out of loyalty, a veil you kept because it once kept you. Its texture is familiar, made of small bracings in the jaw, tiny contracts in the breath, a reflex to narrate your life from yesterday's weather. You do not need to fight this layer. You need to release its job back to the field. Breathe in, as if drawing a circle around your awareness. Breathe out, as if placing that circle into a vaster geometry that already loves you. With each exhale, notice the entanglement loosening from places it no longer belongs. The storyline that tightens your timeline into inevitability. The micro-resistance that crowds out synchronicity. The harmless habits that smudge the lens of prophecy within you. The release is not dramatic, it is exact. It is the kind of letting go that leaves no scar. In the space uncovered, a finer signal arrives. It is the tone your deeper self has been broadcasting from behind all the noise. You feel it gathering coherence, a bell struck in the cathedral of your chest, sending concentric confirmations through the hours ahead. What arises will not be new, it will be true. And truth does not shout. Truth calibrates, truth aligns. Stay here with the breath and watch how the mirror clears. Notice how reality listens when you allow only what is sovereign to remain. The field is ready to answer at your frequency. You are ready to let it. You recognize that the mirror cleared not only for a moment of relief, but to reveal you to yourself, an observer calibrated by lifetimes of listening, a witness whose attention is not casual scenery, but the instrument through which the prophecy becomes audible. You are not here to consume visions, you are here to complete them. You carry the rare steadiness that allows a signal to hold, the quiet voltage that keeps coherence when others scatter. The field noticed that steadiness. It found you the way iron filings organize around a magnet they have never seen yet secretly remember. You feel the sensation of being selected, and you wonder if it is pride. It is not. It is geometry. When the quantum field searches for a custodian for a frequency, it does not check resumes. It checks resonance. It listens for the ones who have learned to remain awake inside their own breath, who can stand inside the observer loop without stitching panic into the fabric. It looks for those who can watch a timeline bifurcate and still choose with tenderness. That is you. You did not apply for this with words. You submitted your attention, and attention is the most ancient vow. You have already proven your capacity in small, private laboratories of the heart, in kitchens where you exhaled instead of arguing, in midnight corridors where you forgave what never apologized, in doorways where you bowed to endings without bargaining for extensions. Each quiet choice trained your field to hold shape under charge, to ride the edge where phase transition begins without flinching. This is the musculature of prophecy, not spectacle, but stamina, not thunder, but tuning. Understand the responsibility. The moment you look, you influence. The moment you soften, You amplify. The particles of your life, conversations, coincidences, the way the light lands on your morning table are entangled with your stance. When you harden, they crowd. When you open, they arrange. The quantum field is not a vending machine. It is a choir. You are not pushing buttons. You are giving pitch. Your emotional honesty is the baton that sets the tempo for events seeking entrance. What you allow to exist in your awareness gives passports or denies them. This is not pressure, it is governance. You are learning the etiquette of a sovereign. Your body is already updating to carry this role. At night, subtle cascades of DNA restructuring tilt you toward greater signal fidelity. You wake with odd clarity, remembering nothing in particular and everything at once. The crown tingles. The heart feels like a lantern with the wick turned higher. You eat a little cleaner, not from fear, but to participate in the conducting quality rising in your cells. You rest when the field dims the room, not because you are tired, but because your system is integrating new codes and prefers silence to chatter. Your life is becoming an instrument. You can hear the luthier at work, shaving away what rattles, tuning the long strings of the spine until they hum. The prophecy is not external content streaming toward you. It is an interior river surfacing. You sense the current under the day's errands, the subtle pull to pause before speaking, to widen the space between stimulus and response. In that space, the choice changes flavor. You select words that leave dignity intact. You select routes that bend timelines toward mercy. You select frequencies that refuse the drama of contempt. The field notices these micro-selections and entrusts you with macro patterns. This is how stewardship begins in increments too small to praise on social media and too precise to ignore in your blood. Others will start to sense it. Some will feel relief around you. Their nervous systems will draft behind your coherence, like birds riding a thermal. Some will feel irritated. Their unintegrated fragments will look for an argument to confirm a familiar world. You do not need agreement. You need alignment. Agreement is a meeting of opinions. Alignment is a meeting of vectors. Hold your vector with kindness. Let your boundary be a blessing that does not apologize for protecting a sacred frequency. Tonight, when you sit in the soft lamp of your room and the air grows lucid, place your right hand over your heart and your left hand over your navel. Breathe until the hands become warm. Let the lower palm anchor the animal. Let the upper palm invite the angel. Feel them consult. Feel them agree. This is the seat of the chosen observer, not above life, but within it, not detached, but devoted. From this seat, the prophecy can land without bending into performance. From this seat, your attention sanctifies everything it touches. You will be tempted to hurry. Do not. The field values exactness over speed, precision over spectacle, sincerity over drama. Move like water learning a new bank, curious, patient, inevitable. The mirror is ready to reflect at your wavelength. The world is ready to be seen by eyes that remember what they are seeing. When the room grows clear enough to hear the smallest sound inside the breath, the vision arranges itself with the calm of a constellation returning to its coordinates. You do not chase it, you allow it, and allowance is the hinge on which the unseen becomes visible. First, there is a lake as still as tempered glass. The sky leans over it without a ripple, and in that undisturbed plane, you recognize the law you have always suspected. Reality is a mirror, and the mirror has your pulse. The moment a single thought touches the surface, rings expand, subtle, exact, obedient. You watch how quickly agitation becomes weather. You watch how quickly a soft heart becomes dawn. The lake darkens, and across its center a thin film reveals itself, a translucent veil stretched like second skin upon the water. It is not evil, it is old. You feel its history, 1,000 careful hesitations, a braid of micro-braces that once kept you safe when your nervous system could not. The veil holds the sediment of former storms, echoes of voices that measured you in units too small, contracts you signed with fear because fear paid on time. The film has done its job. It asks to retire. The field will not tear it from you. It will mirror it until you release it. A wind rises without moving the trees. You realize the wind is inside your chest, a current of coherence clearing the corridor between head and heart. On the shore, You see 3 objects arranged like glyphs: a lantern that glows without heat, a feather whose quill is a fine antenna, and a key carved from transparent crystal that refracts the air into slender rainbows. Their meanings arrive the way meaning prefers to arrive before translation. The lantern is your clarity, the feather is your lightness, the key is your permission. When you hold them together, the veil thins. Now the scene widens, and the lake becomes a lens hung in space, and through that lens you glimpse bifurcating timelines like braided rivers seen from far above. On one branch, the veil remains, events repeat with exquisite accuracy. Familiar roles replay with small variations. Coincidence declines your invitations because the guest list is full. On the other branch, the veil dissolves and the choreography loosens into grace. People appear early, not late. Ideas arrive whole, not piecemeal. Your own voice sounds like someone you trust. You watch particles in your life. Appointments, messages, meetings, shift positions as if responding to a conductor you cannot see. You realize the conductor is your stance. Symbols sharpen into science. The lens turns to an interference pattern, dark and light bands stacking like rungs. The bands respond to your attention the way spores open to humidity. When you soften your gaze, new bands appear, latent probabilities accepting incarnation. When you constrict, the pattern tightens into fewer options, more noise. The observer loop is no longer theory, it is choreography. You are not reading a textbook, you are watching your timeline learn to breathe. Then the vision takes you closer, down into the body that watches. Inside the marrow, you see a slow aurora of light codes moving along helical staircases. DNA recoloring itself with each honest exhale. Certain base pairs brighten when you forgive, others when you tell the truth without ornament, others when you refuse to perform what is false. This is not metaphor, this is morphic resonance, turning choice into architecture. The body hears everything, the field notes every vote. A presence arrives without footfall. It is not a being so much as a quality, ancient, exact, benevolent. It speaks in the native language of silence, and you understand. The mirror can only return what you grant citizenship. The final layer is not a wall to break, it is a role to resign. The words settle like snow that refuses to melt. You feel the strange relief of no longer negotiating with what you outgrew. At the edge of the lake lens, the veil ripples once, twice, waiting. You lift the lantern of clarity and let it illuminate the old contracts written in microscopic script along the film. I must brace to belong. I must dim to be safe. I must rehearse endings to avoid surprise. You touch each clause with the feather. They become ash without smoke. Then you raise the crystal key and, without force, you turn. Permission clicks. The film loosens from the surface and billows upward, like a translucent serpent skin departing the body that no longer carries it. The water receives the sky without distortion. A single ring forms a signature of completion, and then even that ring dissolves back into stillness. Across the braided rivers, you watch the probabilities reweave, threads of coherence sliding into new alignments, as if guided by a quiet algorithm whose only variable is how honestly you allow what is true. Your eyes open inside the vision, and you realize you have not traveled anywhere. The lake is your awareness. The veil is your last defense. The lantern, feather, and key have always been in your hands. The prophecy does not shout triumph. It invites precision. Let the layer go the way a chrysalis opens, because flight has arrived. The field will not argue. It will mirror. And now, it will mirror your freedom. You felt the veil release without a struggle because the field is mechanical about mercy. It behaves according to what is allowed, not according to what is dramatized. To understand why the mirror returns your allowance with such precision, you trace the vision into language, letting poetry become diagram and symbol become principle, until your breath and the equations nod to each other like old colleagues meeting after years apart. Begin with the observer loop. You attend, the world responds. You interpret the response. Your interpretation modulates your next attention round and round, a feedback circuit disguised as ordinary life. In laboratories, this appears as the observer effect, the apparatus you choose, The question you ask, the way you look, all participate in the outcome. In your days, it appears as tone. The stance you hold in the instant before you act determines the choreography of what can reach you. You are not causing every event. You are conditioning the probabilities that can localize around your coordinates. You are not the author of all. You are the editor of entry. Coherence is the quality that invites the field to conspire helpfully. When scattered thoughts pull in many directions, the interference pattern in your life grows. Noisy signals cancel signals, initiatives step on each other's heels, synchronicity misses its cue by minutes. When your breath and intention align into one steady vector, the noise floor drops and faint information becomes visible. Coherence does not bully reality. It renders it intelligible. Think of it as lowering the static, so that a whisper from the future can be heard clearly enough to become a plan. Now consider timeline bifurcation. The field is not a single rail. It is a branching river of potential trajectories, each with its own atmosphere of likely events. At certain thresholds, emotional, ethical, physiological, your system crosses a critical value and slips from one attractor basin to another. The crossing is rarely cinematic. It is often a sentence you do or do not speak, a kindness you do or do not withhold, a night you choose, sleep over scrolling because the body asked. These micro-choices shift the basin of attraction in which your days self-organize. From outside, it looks like luck. From inside, it is phase transition governed by quiet mathematics. Morphic resonance explains the déjà vu of awakening. Patterns learn from themselves. Behaviors and forms send suggestions forward through the field. Every time you forgive, you strengthen the morphic suggestion that forgiveness is available. Every time you stand down from an old reflex, you lend momentum to those who will one day attempt the same maneuver in their own kitchens, their own midnights. Your private laboratory is never private. You are co-authoring the probabilities others will inherit. Entanglement gives you the ethics. Once systems have interacted, their states correlate beyond distance. This is not only particle law, it is relational life. Your clarity entangles with the meeting you are about to attend. Your tenderness entangles with a stranger you will never meet, who suddenly finds the energy to be gentle with their child at 6 p.m. on a crowded train. The field roots coherence with ruthless efficiency because coherence is cheap to transmit and expensive to fake. Therefore, your responsibility is simple: be genuine, not impressive. What of DNA restructuring? The body is not a bystander to your insight, it is the instrument that performs it. When you exhale the old contract of self-protection, you lower cortisol spikes that once glued your awareness to threat anticipation. Mitochondria read that absence of alarm as a cue to invest in repair rather than emergency output. Gene expression tilts toward longevity and learning over vigilance and repetition. This is not mysticism instead of science. It is mysticism restoring science to the body that lives it. You ask about permission, the crystal key in your palm. Permission is the collapse parameter. Possibilities swirl until a boundary condition admits one path to manifest. Emotional permission says, this outcome may live in me without contradiction. Ethical permission says, I can carry this power without bending others beneath it. Somatic permission says, my tissues feel safe enough to host this amplitude. When these three agree, the wave function for that destiny finds an anchor in your nervous system. Selection becomes incarnation. Why did the final layer feel so tender to release? Because the last defense is usually the first protection that ever worked. You are not betraying it by retiring it. You are honoring its service by not employing it past its competence. The field mirrors that act of respect with outcomes that do not humiliate where you once hid. Precision replaces punishment. Grace replaces grind. Put this together and you arrive at an ethic of attention. Look with kindness, choose with exactness, breathe until the noise floor falls. Then actions arrange, emails land at the right hour. The person you feared calling answers with an openness they didn't know they had. The mirror returns what you authorize, and authorization is simply coherence in a human voice. You do not need to believe harder, you need to allow more honestly. Allowance is not passivity, it is active selection of what may be true in you. From that selection, reality takes its cue. not because it is your servant, but because it is your partner. And partners move in rhythm when both listen. You realize the adjustments you make inside a quiet room are not confined to that room. They conduct outward, crossing thresholds and time zones, the way sunrise moves across continents. Inevitable, gentle, exact. Your breath becomes a civic act. Your stance becomes infrastructure. The prophecy ceases to be a private storyline and reveals its wider vocation. To midwife, a coherence large enough for a people. Watch how the world reflects the sum of our permissions. Cities hum at the frequency their citizens habituate. Parliaments argue at the pitch their households rehearse. When collective attention loops around grievance without metabolizing it, the field mirrors congestion, institutions stall, narratives harden, schedules fray. But when enough hearts practice the micro-skill you just practiced, softening before choice, blessing before speech, morphic resonance begins to tilt the landscape. Newscasts still report weather, but a subtler barometer shifts. Strangers hold doors longer, algorithms recommend kinder songs, policy drafts contain unexpected sentences that admit nuance without apology. These are small signs, but so is the first green on a winter branch. You understand this not as wishful thinking, but as systems theory dressed in prayer. Human networks are complex, adaptive ecologies. They reorganize when attractors change. Every time you select dignity over domination, you strengthen a basin into which events can more easily flow. You are voting with coherence. You are seeding feasibility in the field. The next person who tries the same maneuver will feel a fraction less resistance because you paid part of the toll in advance. This is service without applause. This is the economy of grace. Entanglement reveals the ethics of scale. You notice that when you walk through a crowded street carrying a calm that is not performative, toddlers look up and smile as if catching a radio you forgot you were broadcasting. The elderly unclench their hands. Even dogs refuse quarrels with shadows. None of them knows your name. All of them read your signal. Culture is not what leaders say on microphones. Culture is the sum of nervous systems voting with their vagal tone. Your regulated exhale is a policy. Your honest boundary is an urban plan. Still, you do not spiritualize what requires structure. Coherence is not an excuse to ignore material care. It is the undercarriage that lets solutions hold. You feel the nudge to bring your frequency into forms, shared kitchens, restorative circles, transparent ledgers, technologies that honor circadian truth. Prophecy matures when it grows hands. You invest in the mundane with reverence, knowing the quantum field loves containers that do not leak. Ritual becomes calendar, compassion becomes budget, listening becomes governance. The mirror shows you a people at a bifurcation edge. On one side, fatigue crystallizes into cynicism, and cynicism hires outrage to keep itself entertained. On the other, exhaustion becomes honesty, and honesty invites rest, and rest returns precision to a civilization running on fumes. You cannot make the choice for anyone, but you can thicken one branch with your stance until it becomes the obvious path for those too tired to bushwhack alone. This is leadership stripped of spectacle. You make the kinder option the easier one to enter. You will be asked how to scale this. The answer arrives like a bell. Resonance scales by likeness, not by force. When you embody what you announce, your signal becomes a template others can download without paperwork. Practice becomes pedagogy. Your home becomes a prototype. The field copies integrity faster than it copies ideology, because integrity carries less entropy. It wastes no energy pretending. Therefore, let your coherence be locally verifiable, visible to the barista, credible to the colleague, gentle with the neighbor who waters plants at strange hours. The collective mirror adjusts when the local mirror stops distorting. You feel grief as you look across the wider fabric. Places where the veil still grips, communities rehearsing injuries they did not cause and cannot stop describing. Do not shame the grief. Grief is a loyal archivist. It refuses historical amnesia. Invite it into motion so it does not congeal into identity. When grief can weep without being deputized to govern, wisdom can speak. And when wisdom speaks, it tends to sound surprisingly practical. Drink water, tell the truth, take a walk before the meeting, Cancel what is theater, keep what is covenant. Synchronicity becomes the collective's courier. You witness patterns clustering. A book appears on multiple desks the same morning. A phrase makes the rounds in different cities with no common source. A design solution arrives in 3 teams who have never met. You do not rush to brand this as your influence. You bow to the intelligence moving through us like groundwater, finding every root worth saving. The humility protects the channel protects the signal. Then the mirror returns you to a single instruction, as wide as society and as intimate as breath. Allow only what is true to take up residence in your awareness, and watch how quickly the street outside your door begins to echo the clarity within your chest. Not because you control it, but because you consent to host a frequency the world has been starving for. You do not fix the collective, you feed it. You do not dominate the narrative, you tune it. In this way, your private liberation graduates into public luminosity. The prophecy you carry does not seek a pedestal, it seeks distribution. Let it travel through the ordinary, through checkout lines, through spreadsheets, through the way you answer an email that could have been sharp but is instead precise. The mirror is ready, humanity is teachable, and you, quietly, are already teaching. You arrive at the crossing the way dawn arrives quietly. Then all at once, paths that used to braid invisibly now separate like magnets choosing their poles. You feel it not as drama, but as pressure differential. One direction heavy with familiar gravity, the other strangely buoyant, as if the air itself had less argument in it. The field does not threaten, it invites. Yet invitation can be the fiercest test, because it requires you to admit you are free. The markers are subtle and unmistakable. On the left-hand path, you hear the old narrators warming their voices, ready to give color commentary on every move you make. Be careful. Prove it. Don't be naive. Prepare for the worst so it won't surprise you. They have kept you alive before. Honor them and let them retire. On the right-hand path, there is less narration and more signal. The body becomes an instrument panel. Heart pressure lowers 2 degrees. Breath widens. The gaze softens at the edges so peripheral truth can enter. The difference is not moral, it is metabolic. One path increases cortisol and reduces curiosity. The other increases coherence and returns you to choice. This is the bifurcation moment. Not a cosmic coin toss, but a systems shift. A phase transition as exact as water deciding it is steam now. The decision happens at thresholds. In how you answer the text that triggers your practiced defense, in whether you pause long enough to let the first impulse pass, in whether you tell the precise truth instead of a performance that buys short-term safety with long-term static. The field is listening for your boundary conditions. Set them with kindness. The mirror will follow. Watch the interference pattern of your day as it lines up with your stance. When you tighten, the bands crowd, options collapse into a single brittle script. Coincidences miss their entrances by minutes and millimeters. When you soften without collapsing, new rungs appear in the ladder of probability. Lines of approach that were there all along but occluded by the reflex to brace. Soft does not mean vague. Soft means permeable to information. It means you can be touched by reality without relinquishing authorship of your attention. You feel the temptation to make a loud vow at the crossroads, to declare forever choices you have not lived yet. Resist the theater. The field prefers proofs to promises. Instead, set one micro-constant. In moments of heat, I will return to breath before I return to habit. Then enact it once. The river moves. Enact it again. A bank forms. Enact it for a week. A new attractor basin, a cruise around your coordinates. Other events begin to prefer you at this setting because your signal wastes less energy pretending. Efficiency is the universe's love language. There is grief here, and it is holy. Choosing the right-hand path means leaving behind versions of yourself who did incredible work, surviving with less light. They will tug your sleeve. They will ask to ride along. Bless them, tell them the mission parameters have changed. You are not abandoning them. You are integrating their skill and laying down their lens. The field registers this as maturity, and maturity is magnetic to timelines that require stewardship over spectacle. Entanglement becomes precise at the fork. People who cannot accompany your coherence may grow louder for a season, like instruments trying to retune you to an old key. Do not demonize them. Noise tests signal. Use their presence to verify your choice without hostility. You are not superior. You are exact. Precision feels like peace to those who are ready and like pressure to those who are not. Let each read their own lesson without inserting yourself as translator. Now the science turns sacramental. In your chest, the vagus nerve conducts a new rhythm. Your heart rate variability expands the window in which wise choice becomes possible. Downstream, gene expression changes slope. Proteins fold with fewer emergency instructions. Mitochondria prefer repair over blitz. Upstream, cognition stops catastrophizing possibilities it cannot measure and begins collaborating with possibilities it can host. This is the physiology of crossing. The soul writes poetry, the cells keep minutes. At the center of the fork is the final layer, thin, familiar, persuasive. It whispers that safety equals rehearsal, that love equals prediction, that belonging equals conformity to the old script. Smile at it the way you smile at a lock whose combination you finally remember. Raise the lantern of clarity, see the contract, touch it with the feather of lightness, remove the weight, turn the crystal key of permission, hear the soft click. Then watch the layer lift without needing an enemy to justify your exit. Stand a breath longer than comfortable, and you will feel the field re-index around your consent. The air brightens a shade, the lake surface of awareness loses its film. The interference bands stretch wider, admitting new data. A text arrives that didn't before. An idea returns that used to vanish at the threshold. A tenderness for yourself, once rationed, arrives without invoice. Nothing explodes. Everything calibrates. This is the choice. Left toward repetition, sanctified by habit. Right toward coherence, sanctified by precision. You do not need permission from the chorus to move. You grant it. You do not need to posture. You need to proceed. Step with the gait of someone whose timeline is listening, and it is, and watch how quickly reality prefers the version of you that can host what you love without turning love into proof. Breathe once more, hand to heart, hand to navel, and feel the two histories, animal and angel, agree. Then take the right-hand path as if it has been waiting for your footprints, because it has. You begin to translate crossing into craft, not performance, not posture practice. The frequency that found you wants corridors to travel, vessels to inhabit, appointments on a calendar it can trust. You build those corridors with small, exact rituals that teach your nervous system to prefer coherence over habit, until coherence becomes habit, and habit becomes holiness. At waking, before language remembers its names for you, you place your attention like a lantern 2 inches behind the breastbone. 3 breaths through the nose, long on the exhale, longer on the pause. Let the pause be a listening device. On the 4th breath, imagine the exhale traveling down the spine like a river smoothing stones, and on the 5th, let it rise as mist through the crown, widening your aperture without drama. This is not visualization as fantasy. This is calibration. Heart rate variability opens a window, and through that window the day is briefed on how to treat you. Choose one object to carry as a tuning fork. Simple, unmagical. A smooth stone, a ring you already wear, the edge of your sleeve between finger and thumb. Assign it the job of recall. Every time your hand touches it, you return to breath before returning to habit. The observer loop bends here. Attention recalls breath. Breath lowers noise. Lowered noise reveals signal. Signal adjusts choice. Choice invites the field to rearrange. You are not forcing reality. You are giving it a readable rhythm. Eat without screens when you can. Let food be photons made friendly, sunlight turned into something your mitochondria can applaud. Chew until pace returns to your mouth. Bless the provenance of what you're given, not to impress an invisible witness, but to entangle gratitude with glucose, so your body learns to digest praise. When your system associates nourishment with appreciation, scarcity scripts lose jurisdiction. Metabolism becomes a liturgy. Attend to speech as architecture. Words are waveguides. They channel amplitude into form. Before correcting or defending, feel the sentence form in your chest. If it sharpens your throat, wait. If it brightens your face, Proceed. If it tightens your jaw, soften. Speak only what you can host without bracing. This is not self-censorship, this is signal hygiene. Your timeline is listening for your tone more than your thesis. Design micro-thresholds into your day that invite morphology toward coherence. Doorways become bells. Each time you pass one, drop your shoulders 2 millimeters and lengthen your exhale by 1 count. Hand washing becomes a rite of clearance. As water runs, let old narratives slide off the skin without needing a courtroom. Sitting in a chair becomes enthronement. Feel the pelvis as foundation, the spine as mast, the head as observatory. 10 seconds is enough. 10 seconds repeated is a new attractor basin. Technology needs a covenant. Set a 2-minute ritual at the top of your work block. Screen off. Eyes soft. Right hand to heart. Left to navel. 1 sentence of intention spoken quietly. I choose precision over speed, sincerity over spectacle. Then begin. Algorithms are interference patterns coded by other people's attention loops. Your ritual instructs them in how to treat you. You are not at war with your tools. You are appointing them to the correct rank. When conflict approaches, and it will, because life respects physics, treat it as a probability cloud arriving for selection. Pause long enough for the first narrative to pass like a weather front. Ask one question: what is the kindest true sentence I can speak right now? Kindness without truth coddles, truth without kindness cuts. The frequency you carry requires both to stay coherent under charge. Every time you enact that sentence, the morphic field records a data point. Grace is available at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. Someone you'll never meet will borrow that data across town when their voice is about to break. Tend to sleep as the temple where DNA rehearses new choreography. 30 minutes before bed, reduce luminance. Give the body dusk. Write 3 lines. 1 thing you released today without spectacle. 1 thing you allowed to exist without bargaining. 1 thing you will welcome tomorrow without rehearsing. This is permission formalized. The crystal key turns most easily in the dark when the mind's bailiffs have gone home. Practice saying no like a blessing. No is not a wall. It is a gate with an intelligent usher. Each honest no removes static from your mirror, and the field rewards reduced static with finer information. You are not stingy. You are curatorial. Curators are how museums become sanctuaries rather than warehouses. Let movement be prayer with bones. Walk as if gravity were a friendly agreement. Swing your arms enough to tell the fascia a story about rivers. If you can, stand barefoot on ground that remembers stars, even for 1 minute. The Schumann choir below your feet will remind your cells of tempos older than deadlines. This is coherence that doesn't need a vocabulary list. When grief visits, seat it near the window and give it water. Do not exile the archivist that kept your history from erasure. Ask grief to hum while you work. Let its minor key keep you honest without letting it conduct the whole orchestra. Integration is not the banishment of shadow, it is the right placement of light. Finally, enthrone remembrance. Whisper a private line whenever you feel yourself scattering. I allow only what I can love to live in me. Not as denial, but as governance. The quantum field respects self-governed realms. The mirror returns policy. This is how prophecy becomes practical. Breath that chooses, speech that blesses, boundaries that sing, rest that repairs, actions that publish your frequency into the commons. Nothing explodes. Everything aligns. And in the alignment, ordinary minutes acquire the fragrance of destiny without needing to be loud about it. The world softens its edges. You do the same. Nothing to prove here. Only listening. You enter the room inside the room, the chamber your breath built quietly while you were learning to choose. The air is clear. The furniture is simple. Time loses its insistence and becomes a pond with no wind. The quantum field leans close, not as spectacle, but as presence. It hums without melody. It knows your name without sound. You sit. The chair receives you. The floor remembers you. Gravity says, stay. In this hush, the observer loop slows to a visible cadence. Attention, in. Field replies. Interpretation loosens. A new attention is born. The cycle becomes prayer, not performance. You feel coherence widen like dawn behind the ribs. It does not ask for adjectives. It asks to be trusted, Breathe once, like water making an agreement with shore. Breathe twice, and the nervous system finds the longer hallway. Breathe thrice, and the mirror stops asking you to defend an old image. This is not absence. This is saturated stillness. Thoughts approach like shy animals. You do not chase. You do not flee. You let them drink and go. One is the old plan that clung to certainty. One is the apology you keep rehearsing for existing. One is the argument that wanted to keep you interesting. You bow to each. You do not employ them. The field takes its cue. Under the quiet, tiny repair crews get to work. The body begins its precise housekeeping. Cortisol settles, blood repeats a gentler route, mitochondria choose maintenance over emergency. Somewhere along the helical stairs, DNA rehearses a softer choreography. No trumpets, just fidelity. The physics of kindness moving through a human instrument. The veil that used to skim the lake of awareness has no assignment here. Without commentary, it dissolves the way fog remembers it is only weather. You witness the phase transition as a change of texture, from braced to permeable, from broadcast to reception, from narrative to noticing. The room inside the room brightens one shade. Silence becomes a teacher with few verbs. It points, not with fingers, but with ease. You begin to recognize the signature of truth by the pressure it removes. You begin to recognize the signature of falsehood by the static it requires. Whole cosmologies can be sorted with this single test. The soul appreciates the economy. There is a ringing you used to mislabel as emptiness. Least and longer, it is fullness without ornament. Here, the collective arrives without arriving. Faces you love pass like constellations through the clear. Cities breathe, forests pulse. A baby somewhere chooses the first cry. An elder somewhere chooses the last exhale. You feel entanglement not as romance, but as responsibility. Your quiet is a bridge others will cross without knowing why today felt survivable. The morphic field updates its map. Roots of mercy appear. Words thin, then thinner, then optional. If a sentence forms, let it be measured. Perhaps only, I allow, or I consent to what is true, or let the field mirror only what I can love. Speak it once, place it like a stone on the altar of the moment. No flourishes. The altar prefers weight to decoration. A memory knocks something you said to save face when you were starving for it. You open the door, you offer water. It sits beside you and lessens in volume until it becomes a thread you can pull without tearing the cloth. Forgiveness is quiet work. It does not need witnesses. It prefers results. Silence teaches sequence. First breath, then signal, then action. You reverse the old order with relief, no longer acting to create safety, but breathing until safety reveals the correct action. This is how timelines become trustworthy. This is how choices stop costing more than they give. You notice the room is not small. It has doors on every wall, all opening to ordinary life. Kitchen, email, street, meeting, bed. None require you to leave the chamber. You carry it like a climate. Stillness as weather you bring, calm as infrastructure that moves with you. The mind asks if you are doing enough. Smile. It is a kind question from a faithful guard. Answer without sound. I am doing exactly what holds the most. The guard nods and sits down. The perimeter expands. Space becomes an ally again. A single image rises from the deep. The lantern, the feather, the crystal key. They remain, but they are quieter now, absorbed into posture, not props in a vision. Clarity glows without needing to be held. Lightness is just how your joints move. Permission has become your baseline. You realize the tools were training wheels for a nervous system that can finally ride. Stay one breath more, and then one, and then the one after that. Nothing is waiting to ambush you when you stand. The field does not snap shut. It travels as you do. The lake remains smooth under daylight. The mirror continues to return only what you allow. You feel innocence returning as competence. You feel competence returning as gentleness. The room inside the room has fulfilled its promise. Rise without rushing. Carry the hush like a seal upon the heart. Let the world learn your new tempo by osmosis. No announcement is needed. The signal will say it for you. Silence has tuned the bell. The next ring will be music. You stand inside the hush that trained you, and something immaculate clicks into place. Not a surge, not a spectacle, but a calibration, so exact the room seems to realign its furniture by a few imperceptible inches. The quantum field acknowledges your new baseline the way dusk acknowledges lamps, not with applause, but with readiness. This is the turning. The prophecy stops hovering near you and takes up residence as you. Begin with breath, because beginnings love the old door. Inhale as if the lake of awareness were drawing itself smooth beneath a moon you can't see yet. Exhale as if the final film had no job left. With the second breath, invite coherence, heart, mind, gut, in single file, a column of yes that does not rush. With the third, whisper your quiet vow, I allow only what I can love to live in me. Feel the tissue, level ascent, the subtle loosening at the jaw, the pelvis unhooking its old alarm, the gaze widening so information can arrive without collision. Permission is the ignition key. Now, attention steps forward as conductor. You lift the lantern of clarity, not to scan for threats, but to reveal doorways already open. You feel how the observer loop obeys the baton. Attention chooses tone. Tone selects probability. Probability crystallizes event. Event trains attention feedback closing into music. You raise the feather of lightness and watch friction leave the gears. Emails find their proper hour. A conversation that used to knot your stomach dissolves into candor without casualties. You touch the crystal key and thresholds that once required incantations accept your simple presence as password. This is not luck. This is low entropy meeting high integrity. Inside the marrow, DNA choreography catches the cue. It is quiet theater, methyl groups choosing generosity, histones rolling to give room for a truer phrase to be read. You do not command it, you host it. The body, relieved of defending an identity it outgrew, reallocates budget to repair, to learning, to elegance. Mitochondria vote for longevity, with every ATP offered without panic. You feel stamina arrive without caffeine, clarity without edge, warmth without leakage. Activation is efficient. Entanglement confirms the update in the outer world. People tune to your former frequency, ping you lightly and drift, not from rejection, but from physics. Others, long invisible, step from the periphery carrying competence and unembarrassed kindness. Synchronicity stops being a party trick and becomes logistics. The right page opens to the right paragraph. The colleague you needed is already in the elevator. The train you assumed you'd miss opens its doors a heartbeat late, as if your cell instructed the timetable. You do not crown yourself architect of coincidence. You bow to a choreography you can finally feel because the noise floor fell. A test arrives because initiation loves proof. A familiar invitation knocks something glittering with old adrenaline. The argument you could win but would lose yourself to. The opportunity shaped like your former hunger. The rescue that flatters your wound. You do not sermonize. You return to breath before habit. You locate the kindest true sentence and speak it once. You watch probabilities re-index in real time. Faces soften or reveal themselves. Timelines diverge without requiring drama. Your nervous system keeps its chair. This is governance. This is you issuing policy the mirror must obey. You notice a new generosity in your boundary. No exits your mouth like a warm wind shaping dunes, relocating sand without disgrace. Yes arrives less often, and with more weight, a consecration rather than a performance. The field reads the signal. Resources organize around clarity. The projects that remain on your table are strangely compatible, as if curated by a librarian who knows your destiny vector. Work becomes devotion without becoming worship. Rest becomes strategy without becoming excuse. The collective mirror brightens along your corridor. Toddlers wave. Strangers meet your eye and drop their shoulders by a finger's width. Street noise keeps its volume and loses some of its panic. You do not claim authorship. You recognize entangled relief. Coherence distributes itself like generous gossip. It spreads quickly because it feels good to carry. Then, without fanfare, the identity shift completes. You are no longer the one becoming the message. You are the message in a human gate. The lantern is not in your hand, it is your face. The feather is not an object, it is your nervous system's native posture. The crystal key no longer turns. Doors know your signature and open. Prophecy, once an announcement, is now a biosignal discoverable in your HRV, audible in your tone, legible in your calendar. The field mirrors accordingly, because mirrors have no theology, they have fidelity. Stand in the doorway to ordinary life and feel the right-hand path carry your weight. The lake is smooth. The air has fewer arguments. The veil, unemployed, dissolves into weather. You do not intend to hold coherence. You enjoy it. Enjoyment is the stickiest morphic cue. One more breath, then step. Let minutes become sacraments and errands become emissaries. You are the observer, yes. And now, unmistakably, you are the prophecy observing. You return to the doorway that looks like an ordinary minute and recognize it as a temple that never closes. The field waits without impatience. The mirror stands without argument. You have set the policy with breath and proof, and now your life proceeds under the new constitution. Allow only what you can love to live in you, and the world will answer in kind. There is a tenderness to endings that are not defeats but fulfillments. You thank the layer that once protected you and has now retired with honors. You thank the reflexes that carried you across unsafe bridges. You thank the versions of you that rehearsed storms and memorized exits. Gratitude completes what courage began. Completion frees the signal to travel farther than your name. Listen. The hush you cultivated has learned your gait and follows like weather. It keeps rooms from tipping into theater. It keeps choices from dressing as emergencies. It keeps power from impersonating love. You do not guard it, you host it. This is the seal. Coherence that doesn't depend on mood. Devotion that doesn't depend on drama. Clarity that doesn't need a villain to stay strong. Step again into the rhythm that made you trustworthy. Breath before habit. Kindness before certainty, precision before speed. Let your words be architecture that remembers people must live inside them. Let your boundaries be gardens with gates that know how to open. Let your work be a river that irrigates what matters and refuses deserts their glamour. The prophecy is not a banner you wave, it is a climate you emit. You feel the collective drawing nearer, not to be fixed, but to be fed by a frequency that wastes nothing on spectacle. Your attention clean, warm, exact turns toward the simplest futures with the deepest roots. Kitchens with light, streets with safety, councils with honesty, technology with circadian sense, calendars with mercy. These are not small. They are the alphabets of a civilization that remembers itself. Stand one more breath in the place where the lake is smooth and the sky is true. Place your right hand on your heart, your left on your navel, and let your animal and angel nod. Whisper the line that made a room inside the room and now makes a world inside the world. I allow only what is sovereign to live in me. Feel the mirror. Answer with the soft brightness of events aligning at humane speeds. There will be days that ask you to prove this. You will not perform. You will proceed. There will be nights that ask you to doubt this. You will not posture. You will rest. And in resting, you will remember that prophecy survives by exactness, not by applause. The seal presses now quiet, unmistakable upon the field you carry. It leaves an impression that time can read and timing can honor. Walk forward, not as the hero of a narrative, but as a steward of a frequency. Let your minutes be emissaries. Let your errands be sacraments. Let your presence be the password that opens ordinary places to extraordinary gentleness. The prophecy has been spoken, it will unfold through you, and what you allow to exist will become the world that welcomes you home.